Diversity is the accounting and mindfulness of our commonalities and differences. Often, organizations have focused on one aspect or the other. Differences are easy to see. Communication styles, social backgrounds, gender, and race are often the aspects where we draw lines of difference. The Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and Title IX. Gender equality in education are all attempts to heal the systemic harms caused by the false inferiority and undervalued gifts that differences offer. Yet, when we look at the core motivations of human beings, we can recognize we're all seeking safety, significance, and belonging. The human experience provides for us many similar challenges and experiences that require universal responses. We need safe spaces to develop. We long to love and be loved. Fear and desire community where our talents can be utilized. Our methods may be very different. The words we use to express our core values may have contextual meaning, and many of the desires we seek may look different. It's these human commonalities that allow us to look past our superficial differences and unite around our common goals. Yes, working with differences comes at a cost. It's not easy and requires attention and work. This is the call of leaders and servant leadership. Diversity is the accounting of and recognition of our commonalities and differences. We express and attempt to reach our common goal in different ways. We can discuss methods when they differ when we remind ourselves and the people we work with that we share many of the same values. Here are 3 things to remember. We're more alike than we are different. We have common goals and we express them differently. We can build strength by recognizing and accepting our differences. Here are 3 things to do. Acknowledge visible and invisible differences and commonalities, for example, learning styles, personality preferences, cultural backgrounds. Require team members to regularly change roles, responsibilities, and work with people they don't work with often. And 3, encourage team members to continue to build relationships outside of the working sessions. Equity is about how we treat people. A word picture that is often used when explaining equity and its counterpart equality is that equality is making sure that everyone has shoes, while equity is making sure people have shoes that fit. Now let's take this one step further and ask, why do we want shoes that fit people? Political correctness has done most of us an intellectual disservice by socially mandating what can and cannot be thought or spoken. We know that human potential most often rises and falls to the levels of expectation of leaders, parents, teachers, or police officers. Equity is about how we create space for the maximization of human development by removing or augmenting barriers that only get in the way of that development. Bureaucracies are systems designed to benefit those who create them, even at the detriment of those who use the systems. Equality is about fairness, but we only have to turn to our early upbringing to see the fallacy of that mindset. Life is not fair is often the anthem of parenting. Equity is unfair. It's about learning what works, what motivates, and how we eliminate barriers that limit human potential. As leaders, we must be critical and systematic to find the methods, resources, and approaches that bring out the best of our groups as we seek to build competence and character. So, here are 3 things to remember. Equality focuses on fairness of opportunity. Equity focuses on quality of outcome. Equity may look like different treatment. So, here are 3 things to do. Define your goal or desired outcomes for diversity and equity. Think about the many paths to that goal or outcome given your group's diversity, and remove barriers or procedures that keep them safe, builds character, but may limit the group's ability to reach the goals. Inclusion is about removing barriers to participation. As leaders, we must create space where process, attitude, and behaviors don't aid in the reaching of our goals or questioned. Physical barriers to participation like how, where, and at what time we meet need to be taken into account, especially for those with special needs or transportation issues. Inclusion is not about lowering the bar, it's about asking the purpose of the bar and augmenting that bar if it in fact helps us reach our predetermined outcome. Here are 3 things to think about. We all have challenges we face. They may feel or look different. Inclusion is about created space for us all to work together towards a goal. Inclusion is not about lowering the bar, but changing ineffective or unnecessary bars. So here are 3 things to do. Weigh current policies and practices against the needs of the group, legal boundaries, and tradition. Be responsive to information that could help the group develop character and reach outcomes. Be flexible and responsive to the needs of the group in ways that will produce the desired outcomes and builds character. Leadership is the act of moving ideas or groups toward a set of goals. The leader is the person who drives that process either from a position of authority or a position of influence. The servant leader is a style of leader where the leader uses his, her, or their knowledge, skills, abilities, and resources for the betterment of the group and seeks no glory or praise for themselves. Servant leadership often comes at great personal and professional costs. Can you think of some servant leaders and the price they paid? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, or Malala Yousafzai, just to name a few. And for those of you who don't know who Malala Yousafzai is, she's a Pakistani activist and the youngest ever Nobel Prize laureate. Yousafzai was injured on October 9, 2012 by a Taliban gunman when he attempted to murder her for going to school. No man is an island, the old adage states. Humanity is a relational act. Can you imagine what would happen to a fruit tree if the juices of that tree were exclusively fed back to that tree? How healthy would that tree be? Well, not healthy at all. And that's because the juice of the tree is designed to be consumed by others. So it is with our leadership, time, and talent. Why is it that the World War II veterans are called the greatest generation? Because of the great service they gave. So yes, Dr. King was correct. Everyone can be great because everyone can serve. Leadership is the act of moving ideas or groups toward a set of goals. Leadership is about service and the recognition that moving people toward common goals can be challenging, but the rewards of goal accomplishment, individual engagement, and team development can outweigh those challenges. Here are 3 things to think about. Leadership is more than a position. It's about how to create collective action. Leaders must understand the roles of followers by having been a follower. Leadership is a balance of the goals and the people. It's about service to both. So here are 3 things to do. As a leader, one must be mindful of the goals and outcomes. Engage, enlist, encourage the group in the building of strategies, approaches, and action plans towards the goal. Hold the group accountable for the achievement or failure to accomplish the goals. Context is everything. Context is simply the geographic places where we developed, the physical environment where we socialized in, and the governmental and religious systems that educated us. Our methods and learnings from this context, we will call it culture. Culture is an adaptation to a particular context. Minnesota and Florida approach winter very differently because of the context. Consequently, they have very different cultures. We know that as times move forward, context changes. Context is constantly shifting and changing, therefore, culture is always in a state of flux. Fashions, fads, and taboos are clear markers of these cultural shifts. Today's pet rock will be tomorrow's fidget spinner. Culture has a core set of values that are physically manifested as artifacts. Arts, music, food, presentation, clothing are all representation of the value a culture holds. These artifacts are designed to teach future generations the core values and history of their cultural group. So when we see customs we don't understand, communication styles foreign to us, as a leader, I might want to find out more about the context from which that cultural norm has come. Context is everything. Understanding someone's background is critical to understanding them. The more information you have about the people in your groups, the better you'll be able to recognize what they all have to offer the team. As you move these individuals to a functional team, the recognition of their background could be critical to the team's development. Here are 3 things to think about. Context is the nurturing or developmental environment we've had very little control over. Geography, location, and our generations have had a huge impact on our worldview. To better understand individuals and groups, it's helpful to get to know where they come from and their stories. Here are 3 things to do. Recognize that you have a context and culture that has helped you produce a worldview and paradigm. Provide opportunities for your group to share background, learning styles, and challenges they've overcome. Ask groups when faced with conflict to take a step back and ask if the impasse could be a context or cultural issue. There's no inherent conflict between human beings. People have to be taught to dislike each other. What we typically refer to as conflict is often differing methods to a similar goal. High context cultures, low context cultures, personality types, personal differences could all be sources of perceived conflicts when in fact they're more about our approaches to goal attainment. We want similar things, but not all the same things. We don't all want the same things. There's more than one car company. Our gene selection is almost limitless, and the resources we seek to advance our lives can be augmented, replaced, or repurposed. How we communicate could also be a source of conflict. Conflicts in communication often result from a lack of understanding culture, a lack of time building relationships, and a lack of understanding core motivations. Many individuals would rather avoid conflict, as leaders must use our tools of communication to help navigate perceived conflict. Understanding group dynamics. Bruce Tuckman in 1965 said that these norming, forming, storming, and performing phases are all necessary and inevitable in order for the team to grow, face up to challenges, tackle problems, find solutions, plan work, and deliver results. As a leader, it's important to use the tool of communication to navigate individuals and groups through conflict to results. Forming the team meets and learns about the opportunities and challenges, and then agrees on goals and begins to tackle the tasks. Team members tend to behave quite independently. They may be motivated but are usually relatively uninformed of the issues and objectives of the team. Team members are usually on their best behavior but very focused on themselves. Mature team members begin to model appropriate behavior even at this early phase. The meeting environment also plays an important role to model the initial behaviors of each individual. The major task functions also concern orientation. Members attempt to become oriented to the tasks as well as one another. Discussion centers around defining the scope of the task, how to approach it, and similar concerns. Storming. In this stage, participants form opinions about the character and integrity of the other participants and feel compelled to voice these opinions if they find someone shirking responsibility or attempting to dominate. Sometimes participants question the actions or the decisions of the leader as the expedition grows harder. Disagreements and personality clashes must be resolved before the team can progress out of this stage. So, some teams may never emerge from storming, or may re-enter that phase if new challenges or disputes arise. In Tuckman's 1965 paper, only 50% of the studies identified a stage of intra-group conflict, and some of the remaining studies jump directly from stage 1 to stage 3. Some groups may avoid the phase altogether, but for those who don't, the duration, intensity, and destructiveness of the storms can be varied. Tolerance of each team member and their differences should be emphasized. Without tolerance and patience, the team will fail. This phase can become destructive to the team and will lower motivation if allowed to get out of control. Some teams will never develop past this stage. However, disagreements within the team can make members stronger, more versatile, and able to work more effectively as a team. Supervisors of the team during this phase may be more accessible, but tend to remain directive in their guidance and decision-making and professional behavior. The team members will therefore resolve their differences, and members will be able to participate with one another. Norming. Resolved disagreements and personality clashes result in greater intimacy, and a spirit of cooperation emerges. This happens when the team is aware of competition and they share a common goal. In this stage, all team members take the responsibility and have the ambition to work for the success of the team's goals. They start tolerating the whims and fancies of the other team members. They accept others as they are and make an effort to move on. The danger here is that members may be so focused on preventing conflict that they're reluctant to share controversial ideas. Performing with group norms and roles established, group members focus on achieving common goals, often reaching an unexpectedly high level of success. By this time, they're motivated and knowledgeable. The team members are now competent, autonomous, and able to handle this decision-making process without supervision. Dissent is expected and allowed as long as it's channeled through means acceptable to the team. There is no inherent conflict between human beings, although we may want many of the same thing. How we attain these things may be quite different. People have to be taught to dislike each other. As the song statement from the musical South Pacific, to hate and fear, you've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. Here are 3 things to think about. Conflict is often rooted in a perception that goals can't or won't be accomplished or reached. Conflict can be mitigated when we seek to understand culture, goals, and motivations. All human beings are looking for safety, significance, and belonging. And here are 3 things to do. Educate the group on the learning and life cycle of groups, forming, norming, storming, and performing. Practice working through conflict, team-building games or activities. Hold the group accountable for conflict negotiations by working through them and reminding them of the goals and outcomes. While servant leadership is a timeless concept, the phrase servant leadership was coined by Robert K. Greenleaf in The Servant as Leader, an essay that he first published in 1970. In that essay, Greenleaf said, "The servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then, conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. That person is sharply different from one who is leader first, perhaps because of the need to assuage an unusual power drive or to acquire material possessions. The leader first and the servant first are two extreme types. Between them, there are shadings and blends that are part of the infinite variety of human nature. The difference manifests itself in the care taken by the servant first to make sure that other people's highest priority needs are being served. The best test, and difficult to administer, is, do those served grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely themselves to become servants? And what is the effect on the least privileged in society? Will they benefit, or at least not be further deprived? A servant leader focuses primarily on the growth and well-being of people and the communities to which they belong. While traditional leadership generally involves the accumulation and exercise of power by one at the top of the pyramid, servant leadership is different. The servant leader shares power, puts the needs of others first, and helps people develop and perform as highly as possible. Servant leadership is about building the capacity of the groups to solve their problems, come up with solutions, and take actions that you, as the leader, help facilitate. As the leader, it's important that one focuses the group on its ability to respond to challenges to the goals and not rely on the leader as the only source of knowledge and inspiration. The leader's job is to help them do the work. Here are 3 things to think about. Servant leadership is mission and people focused. Power, resource, and influence is accumulated in the service of the mission or the group. Your gifts and talents are designed to advance the groups and not yourself, although you may gain much from the group's success. Now, here are 3 things to do. Keep the goals of the group as the central focus. It's the group's job to do things. Make sure that the group does not focus primarily on one person or small group to do the majority of the work. And engage all group members and share knowledge and resources as much and as often as you can. Leader as coach. A coach is one who teaches, develops, and helps their group identify obstacles that prevent their ability to achieve common goals. Coaching is about strategically and tactfully asking the right questions, providing the space to create answers that make sense for the group in its context. Coaches employ the Socratic method, asking questions that get the group to think, often in new and different ways. Asking strategic questions guides thinking. Fácil in Spanish means easy. It's the leader's responsibility to make the group's work easy by creating space for group problem solving. Leaders as coach don't look to solve problems, but is seen as the facilitator of processes where the group creates the value for the actions they'll choose to take. The leader may see a faster or simpler way and want to help the team. This, however, in many circumstances, will delay the skill development of the group. Coaching takes time, and when practiced, the group develops in ways or creates solutions that the leader may not have even thought of. Coaches are thoughtful, energetic, passionate, and lead by example. Leader as coach is really about the development of the team, modeling, teaching, and correcting skills and character development with a goal in mind. Coaches look for the unique gift or talent in each individual and works to develop a team that complement and accentuate these talents toward a common goal. So, here are 3 things to think about. Coaches are more focused on development, knowing success comes from sound foundational skills. Coaches are strategic in the use of discipline, reward, and critical feedback, all focused on the development of their team. And coaches make complex processes accessible and seem easy as they require excellence in the practicing of those skills. Now, here are 3 things to do. Keep the skill level of your group in mind as you teach new skills. Build on the failures and success of the group. Teachable moments. Model what you want your group to be. And finally, hold high standards for character development and skill acquisition while taking time to build toward those skills. Leader as mediator. Being a leader means you must be a source of inspiration for groups you serve. You must sense when morale is low and do something that revitalizes them. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see." So if you want upbeat, take initiative type individuals. It starts with your modeling. Leaders look to clarify goals while bringing the diversity of thought, attitudes, mindsets, and behaviors to work and towards goals. Leadership, in this role, requires decisive decision-making and the building of consensus to work towards the goal in the face of disagreement. Mediators understand culture, context, communication styles, conflict styles, and work to get the group through conflict, upholding the highest values of the group. Helping groups navigate through challenges together while not losing attention and enthusiasm takes a leader who is committed to the development of the group. Sometimes it's more important to be effective than to be right, and mediators look for those solutions that increase effectiveness even if the road seems longer. Leadership is best demonstrated when the leader can maximize all the talent of the group, navigate them through challenges, and encourage them to do more than they set up to accomplish. Helping the group be decisive and own successes and failures is the hallmark of this leadership style. Here are 3 things to think about. You must be a source of inspiration and encouragement. Mediators must have or voice minority opinions that might not have otherwise been heard. Now here are 3 things to do. Keep the diversity of skills, thoughts, and backgrounds focused on the accomplishment of goals. Look for solutions that help develop character, individual skill, and group effectiveness. And finally, work to continue to understand the role, context, culture, and conflict play in process of group decision making.